38 MMA here to break down the entire Bellator 288 card from start to finish. We're going to cover every single fight on this card, starting with the earliest of early fights with not much to go on, all the way up to the main event, the title fight between Kory Anderson and Vadim Nemkov. So we're going to cover that whole thing. I want to give you the heads up on this one. This was the hardest card I've had yet on this channel to break down, but not the hardest to predict on all the fights. The reason it was the hardest is because I have no idea who half of these people are, or didn't ahead of time when going into this one. But I learned a lot about these guys. I've watched almost every single one of all of their fights, aside from the handful of people that were, towards the top of the card that were pretty easy to remember their fights. They've been around a while. But a lot of the guys on the early matchups on this card, the prelims, the stuff like that, they have 3 fights or 2 fights or 0 fights in one case, in which that one, obviously, there's not much to go on. But like I said, this has been the toughest one to break down just from a time perspective. So for that alone, do me a favor and like this video, because I spent probably 7, 8, 9 hours just breaking down this one card, and that's a lot. And I'm watching some of these fights in double time just to get through some of them, because there's a lot to go through. So do me a favor, toss a like on this video for me, just for the effort alone. But also, if you're new to the channel, I do break down every single Bellator card, every single UFC card, and every single Dana White's Contender Series card. So if this ends up being something that you like, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. Do yourself a favor and subscribe to the channel so you can find all these breakdowns every single week as we go forward throughout the remainder of the year and into the next year and so forth. So without any further ado, let's go into the first fight. We've got a lot of really fun matchups coming up. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, 138 MMA proudly brings to you the hottest picks in the world!
First fight of the night, we have heavyweights. One making his debut, Wladmir Gouvea, I think is how you pronounce that, and Kory Moegenburg. Kory Moegenburg is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Real quick, for anybody that's new to the channel, let me know in the comments what you think about this. I've started adding the weight class here. I don't know that you really need it, but I decided to add it. So let me know what you think in the comments if you like the touch or if you think it's just a waste of me writing stuff on the board. And we'll go forward with whatever the consensus is. Anyway, back to the fight here. So obviously for Gouvea, Gouvea. We're gonna go with Gouvea. For him, I've got nothing to go off of. He has no fights. I found nothing on the amateur circuit. I found nothing as a pro, obviously, because it's his debut. So I don't know. But he's listed as having a boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu style of fighting. I did see a little bit of training footage by scouring the web. Not a lot to go off of. But he is a bit taller, 6 foot, 70-inch reach, against 5'10", 70-inch reach on Moegenburg. I'm going to pick the debuting fighter here for the simple fact that Moegenburg isn't very good. He used to be okay as a middleweight. Entry-level skills, but not the bottom of the barrel. But he used to be a middleweight, and now he's a heavyweight, and he put on all the wrong kind of mass. He didn't bulk up the right way, let's put it that way. He's just fat. He's just real big, has a big gut, big old man boobies. Not what you want to see from a guy that's, fighting at a Bellator MMA card, okay? So for me, I'm going to take the debuting fighter here. No confidence in this. Don't bet on this fight. I mean, unless you have a really strong fade on the not so high level Moegenburg. He's clearly being brought in to help this debuting fighter, but still, it's a debut. There's too many questions that are left unanswered. There's too many unknowns, and I mean, he could go in there and be total trash, and some fat guy could just whoop on him. So who knows? Anyway, let's go to the next fight. We've got better analysis than that. We have a featherweight bout between Matias, Nader and Isaiah Hokit. Now, in this matchup here, we have an interesting one for me because Hokit was brought into Bellator to be this kind of like a big wrestling prospect that's going to climb through the ranks. And then he gets knocked out in 10 seconds in his first fight. And I know that guys have bounced back from that, as far as, like Aaron Pico, who lost his first fight, something like that. But, I mean, he was knocked out in 10 seconds. That didn't look good. So what does Bellator do? Okay, we'll give him another shot. Puts him in there with somebody else that they're pretty sure he can beat. He does win. He gets back on track. He does have good wrestling. It's that's the reason they brought him in. He was a solid wrestling prospect. But I don't think he lived up to the hype that they were hoping right away. And now he's kind of like kind of stuck in this, well, is he going to be a prospect moving forward or not? So we're going to put him against a 3-0 Matias Nader to figure it out. I think it's Nader. It could be Nader. I don't know. I'm going to say Nader because it sounds cool for me, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so for Hokit, he does have the height advantage. He is 5'10". The reach is about the same, or give or take. I could not find an exact accurate reach on Nader, but a couple of them said it was about the same. A couple of them said it was not, but who knows? Either way, Hokit's the taller fighter, so there's that. So it's going to be basically a wrestling versus a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter because, well, Nader doesn't have the greatest striking. It's very rudimentary. Hokit probably shouldn't strike because he got knocked out pretty quick in that first fight, and chin concerns are there, I guess. I don't know. I didn't write it up here. Anybody can get knocked out. It's a thing. But on the other side, for Nader, he does have a decent body lock takedown, and if he gets on top of Hokit, I don't believe Hokit's going to do as well off his back because wrestling, typically, you're not on your back. That's part of the sport. You don't want to be on the back. That's how you're losing points. He does have good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, though, so if Hokit does get the takedown, I can see Nader working that Jiu-Jitsu and using that to kind of control where the positions are taking place, things like that. Yeah, this is a tough one for me. I wouldn't bet on it, but I'm going to take Nader in this. I think Hokit's going to end up not being the prospect that they thought he was. He could prove me wrong here. He does have wrestling, and wrestling is probably the best base for MMA. Wrestling or Sambo, same idea. They're both a similar style. That's the best base for MMA. But I think Nader, 3-0. He looked pretty good in all three of those fights. I did watch all three of them. They weren't against the best competition. Obviously, it's his first 3 fights in MMA. But, I saw enough about him that I said, he's probably not going to collapse. He didn't get knocked out in 10 seconds, even though people have landed on him. Like I said, his striking's not great. But I'll take Nader. Hokit's got a chance here, so like I said, don't bet on this one, but let's move to the next one. All right, so this is going to be a good follow-up to the last video because Rob Fenicle is actually one of the guys that Matias Nader fought on his way up, and he is the reason that I don't think Nader's going to get knocked out by Hokit in that last fight because this dude hits pretty hard. In this fight here, so we have another featherweight matchup, obviously. The last one was featherweight. Fenicle fought Nader, whatever. We have Laird, I don't know how you say it, Anderson. We're going to call him Anderson against Rob Fenicle. Now, Rob Fenicle is 2-2 against the 2-0 Anderson. Anderson's probably a massive favorite. I have no idea what the odds are on this card when I'm filming this now, or filming. There's no film. Recording this. When I'm recording this now, the odds were released, I think, but not on any book. They're just for reference on Best Fight Odds, and I didn't really look at them. I figured it's fine. Anyway, I didn't want to be skewed by the odds in this anyway, but I'm sure that Anderson's going to be a big favorite. I don't think he should be. Let me break this down. So Anderson, he does have probably the better grappling of the two just overall, but that might be it. His takedowns they're okay. He's going to struggle to get the takedown. His striking is very basic, but his grappling's good overall. He does have to watch out for the heel hook on Fenicle's part, though, because that guy can get you in a heel hook. He's done it in the past, and it's slick. So, but here's the thing. He did lose to Nader pretty clear in the grappling department, and that's why I do think Anderson's got the better grappling. But there's a loss on Fenicle's record to a guy in LFA, and I don't know that he lost that fight. Zach Vinci or VC or something like that. Something like that. Anyway, I thought Fenicle won that fight. He definitely won one round, definitely lost another round, and there was a round that was very close. I believe it was, if my memory serves, Fenicle won the first, third he definitely lost, and second was very close. I thought Fenicle won on my score, but it wasn't a total robbery, but I thought he won. And that guy went on to do pretty darn good things. So if, in fact, Fenicle's the underdog, I'm tossing a teeny bit on this guy, and here's why. He doesn't have the best striking. It's okay. It's decent. It's very wild, though, and for a guy that has very basic striking, I'm feeling like he can get overwhelmed here. There's a nice calf kick on the Fenicle side. He does throw that with some power and some snaps, so that's nice. Like I did mention, he does have a good heel hook. So if it does go to the ground, I wouldn't count him out there. It's not as good of grappling on the Anderson side, though, I don't think. But he also fights rough. It's nasty. So he's not just in there, like some guys fight pretty, which is good. Like, clean technique, really nice, nice looking strikes, smooth transitions. That's one way to fight, and that's good. Fighting rough is another way to fight, and that's also a good thing because Because when you fight in a style that's very abrasive, for example, so everything that Fenicle does on the ground is going to be abrasive, and it's going to cause pain. It's not going to be fun to deal with. It's going to wear on a guy. Same thing in the clinch. Same thing in the striking department. He's just kind of rough to fight. I don't know how else to describe that. If you know what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments, because I'm going to have to figure out a better way to describe that for anybody that doesn't quite understand that in future videos. But either way, for me, I like the probably underdog in this one. I'm not sure, but probably the underdog, because I think that 2-2 record is not quite as good of a story to tell as the 2-0 here, because that 2-0, they're spaced kind of far apart, didn't look amazing in them, didn't really blow me away. Like I said, his striking, takedowns, but once he gets it to the ground, he does have a pretty good advantage. So give me Fenicle. Let me know what you guys think. Let's go to the next fight. The first really clear fight of the night takes place at middleweight. We have Jordan Newman taking on Jayden Taulker. Taulker's 2-2 in his last 5 fights, but only 4 fights. He's 2-2 in his only fights, and 4-0 for the Newman side. In this matchup, we have Taulker, who's pretty much exclusively a boxer that just happens to do a couple of MMA fights here and there. That's pretty much what it is, really. He's actually a boxer that's just doing MMA, probably for the paycheck. I don't know. Ask him. But that's what it seems. He does have decent boxing. It's not like top tier. He's obviously not like a world-renowned boxer, but it's not bad. You know, he sticks a good jab, stuff like that. On the other side, we got Jordan Newman, who is going to be the bigger guy, or at least the taller guy, has really good wrestling, solid ground and pound, and can use his wrestling to set up his strikes. If you're worried about the takedown, the overhand, you know, the level change into an uppercut, things like that, he can set those things up. He's done it in a few of his fights a little bit when he's wanted to strike with the opponent. I don't think there's much to cover here. Jordan Newman's going to run away with this one. He's so far of the fights I've broken down so far, easily the most confident. I mean, probably a ridiculous favorite, but yeah, if you want to parlay him or whatever, should be easy enough. I don't see Taulker having any answer for him, so that's my pick. Let's go to the next one. This breakdown's gonna look rough. Trust me, I watched all of the fights. It's just really simple what these two guys are doing. So at light heavyweight, we have Radick, I don't know. I'm gonna say Radick. Take it on Sullivan, Cauley. Both guys undefeated in their MMA careers. 3-0 for the Radick side. 4-0 for Cauley. Cauley does give up 2 inches in height, whatever. The big difference here is the age. Now, the guy's only 3-0. He's 38. What does that mean? Well, he's got a late start to his career. Okay, so why? Well, he was doing some kickboxing, okay? So Radick's, he's a decent kickboxer. I didn't really write that up here because I don't think that it's going to apply as much in this matchup comparatively. So both guys strike okay. It's not like he was a world champion kickboxer. I don't think he was. If he was, I didn't notice it from watching his fights. But, you know, I watched a few of his kickboxing bouts, but I also watched all of his MMA fights, and that's more what I'm going off of here. Because even though some of the things are the same in kickboxing and MMA, like you're throwing punches and kicks, it doesn't always translate, you know, from one to the other, cut and paste. So I spent more time watching these 3 fights than I did his kickboxing. So anyway, dude's a powerful guy, all right? He can use his range pretty well. I mean, he's a powerful guy, but he doesn't... I take that back. Okay, he can use his range well. He just doesn't all the time. Sometimes he wants to come forward and throw his bombs, and he doesn't always make them nice and straight like you would like a guy that is 6'5" to do. Either way, he can use his range. He doesn't do it all the time. He's very powerful. On the Sullivan Cauley side, he's younger, faster, more aggressive, more powerful. Strikes all right. I'm going to take Sullivan Cauley simply for the fact that he is younger, more powerful, more aggressive, faster. That's what it's going to come down to in this fight. I'm not mega confident in it. Could the former kickboxer, you know, do his work in the kickboxing department and win? Yeah. But Sullivan Cauley's not a bad fighter at all. He's shown some decent striking, some decent grappling, just a little bit of everything in his fights at an all right level. Being only 4-0, younger, stronger, faster, more aggressive fighter, I'm going to take him in this one, but I'm not going to bet this one. The odds are probably going to be weird. Anyway, let's go to the next fight. I've got more that are going to be a lot better for you. A couple of grapplers here in the featherweight division. We have Nick Talevera, I'm going to say, taking on Lucas Brennan. Now, in this matchup here, we got a couple of really good grapplers. That's their bread and butter. That's what they're going to try to do. In this one, though, one side is clearly the better grappler. So most of the time when you have two grapplers that are both really high-level grapplers, what happens is it takes place on the feet. In this matchup, I don't know that that's going to be the case. Maybe it does, and if it does, then could change this whole breakdown. I don't know. I don't have much to go off of on the feet. They don't really do a whole lot on the feet. Typically, they want to get the fight to the ground because they're both grapplers. For Talevera, he is a little bit taller. He is 6 foot tall. I don't know what his reach is. I couldn't find it. I probably remember Brennan. I don't remember Brennan's, but I probably had it written down somewhere. I didn't think it was worth it if I couldn't find the opponent's reach, but we're going to assume it's longer because he is taller. Okay, great. Moving on. Anyway, so for Brennan, though, he's clearly got the grappling advantage by a pretty good margin. His grappling is slick, and he does have a decent body lock and trip style takedown. I usually don't like that as your primary means of taking an opponent down, but he does it very well. So he'll lock up on the body. He can do it open mat or against the cage. If it's open mat, a lot of times he has a good trip. If it's against the cage, he can use the trip as well, but he'll often just kind of drag you to the ground. It works well. Either way, if this takes place on the mat like I think it will, Brennan's going to run away with this one. His jiu-jitsu is just that much better than probably most of the lower level MMA fighters that you're going to find on this Bellator card. So I'm going to take Brennan. There's a world where Talevera wins. Say this stays up on the feet, and we don't really know what to go off of here. So there could be that. But yeah, I take Brennan. Fairly confident in it. Let's move to the next one. Okay, this is my most confident pick of the entire night, by far. One of these guys is going to run away with this one, and I'll tell you who in just a moment. We have Jesse Hannan taking on Archie Colgen at 155 pounds, the lightweight division. These guys, still relatively new to their careers. Archie Colgen 5-0, 2-1 on the Hannan side. Hannan? I think Hannan. Okay, anyway. Hannan's got decent wrestling. He's this big, strong guy, muscular-wise. Just kind of a ball of muscle. Not a bad fighter by any means. He's fighting a guy that's an absolute savage. Colgen is a beast. Now, when he gets to the higher level competition, yeah, maybe we'll start to see some holes in his game. But right now, the only drawback I really saw is that sometimes he gets stuck in throwing single shots. It works well for him because he has really fast and powerful hands. He can get away with throwing those single shots. He can shoot a takedown on you and just ragdoll you like you're just a piece of absolute trash. Pick you up, slam you on your head. Still, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to get tired doing this. Do it again in a few minutes later. The guy's just a monster when it comes to those type of things. Now, he's going to be able to run through all of the lower level competition doing this, but as he gets to better level fighters, we may have to reevaluate what we think of Colgen. We'll see. But for this fight, this dude's a savage, and I think he's going to run right through Jesse here. Just the way it is. Safest bet of the night for me. He's probably ridiculously crazy on the odds. Maybe you throw him in with Newman in a parlay or something. But yeah, I like Colgen here a lot. Let's go to the next fight. Nothing else to say on this. Okay, so we have a matchup between a couple of hot prospects here. One's going to move on. The other one's probably going to dwindle a little bit down and have to rebuild themselves back up. Kind of like Jornel Lugo is trying to do with this matchup. He actually was getting ready to move on to that next level. Lost to Danny Sabatello, I believe is his name. He's fighting Rafion Stotts coming up really soon for the title. So anyway, Jornel Lugo was that hot prospect. He was 8-0 going into his last fight. Got that loss. So he is coming off of a loss here. He's now 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Jaylon Bates, on the other hand, this is at bantamweight, by the way. Jaylon Bates, on the other hand, is 5-0 in his last 5 fights because he's 6-0 overall. Both of these guys have a similar grappling ability. Both are good at their grappling, decent with the takedowns, not elite level, but pretty good at it. Holding people down, they both kind of struggle some, but they're able to get the takedowns frequent enough that it's not a problem. And when they get it there, they're usually able to control, use their ground and pound, working, looking for submissions, working the positions, work to advance, things like that. Either way, both guys are similar in that aspect. Here's where it changes things, though. And here's where, when I first saw this fight, I was like, oh, Jaylon Bates, 6-0. I remember that guy. He's been winning fights pretty well. He's been making them close in these last couple. And originally, I was thinking, oh, Jaylon Bates is probably going to be the better of the two. And then I started watching back all their fights, and I said, you know what? I think Lugo's the better fighter here by a pretty good margin. So I'm going to give away my pick. I'm picking Lugo here, but let me tell you why. Because if you don't know why, it's hard to make your own opinion. So for me, two good grapplers, both decent with the takedown. I don't think this fight ends up on the mat. I think this is going to be the striking affair. And what happens is Jaylon Bates' striking is not that good. It's just his grappling is good enough that people let him strike against them because they're worried about the grappling. Lugo, though, he keeps his range well, and he can strike all right. His calf kick's actually pretty damn good. So I think Jornel Lugo has a significant advantage in the striking. And if the grappling is close to even, I'm gonna lean the Lugo side by a pretty good margin. I have no idea who's the favorite in this. I would assume Bates being him 6-0. But Lugo, coming off that loss to a guy that's about to fight for a title, not a big deal in my opinion, because Jalen Bates would also lose to Sabatello. At least that's the way I see it. I'm taking Lugo here. Let me know what you guys think. Let's move on. Okay, so we have Jairo Pacheco coming in 5-0 in his last 5. He's undefeated overall, so 7-0 is his full record at fighting Killys Mota at 155 or the lightweight division. Killys Mota coming in 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Kind of a spotty end to his run so far, but he is a little bit higher up the ladder. He has fought in Bellator quite a few times, so there is a little bit more to go off of. So we're going to kind of break down whether or not the up-and-coming prospect or the, I guess, Bellator veteran is going to be the winner in this fight tonight. So, or I guess this Friday or whatever it is. Anyway, for Pacheco here, he's undefeated. He's got that undefeated swagger to him. He does have really slick Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's really nice. It's really good. He can work in his sweeps. He can work in his submissions. But the problem is he's content to do that. He's content to play jiu-jitsu, if you will. That's an issue for me against a guy like Killys Mota. This is a hard matchup for him. Here's why. He's also got pretty good jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's slick as well. I would say Pacheco's probably got a little bit better jiu-jitsu, but it's not by a wide margin. And Mota's a way better striker. The reason I say that, his striking is very effective. He has a kind of a Muay Thai base with his striking, and it shows. If you look back, he has a fight with Mando Nalo, and I believe Nalo, his only loss, I could be wrong, he might have lost since then, but the only loss I can remember for Nalo is to Killys Mota by leg kicks. The dude just kept hitting that darn calf, took him down with, blasting the leg. Yeah, Nalo had nothing to answer for. Killys Mota, he can throw the hands well, throws the kicks well, mixes things together with the striking, and because his jiu-jitsu's pretty darn good, I think he might be a black belt, might be a brown belt, I don't know. He's up there though. His jiu-jitsu's good. Good enough that I don't think Pacheco, even though he probably has the more elaborate toolbox for his jiu-jitsu game, even though that's the case, I don't know that he's going to want to go to the ground with a guy like this because this guy's effective with his everything, jiu-jitsu, striking, whatever. Something I want to point out too, he has a loss to Derek Anderson by head kick on his Tapology or whatever. Watch that fight. Mota is winning most of the fight, but Derek Anderson does something which I think it was, I don't want to say it was by accident, but there's a little bit of luck involved in this head kick because Mota's coming off the ground. I wish I could show you, but the ground's way down there and you won't be able to see me on camera. He's coming off the ground. He's coming off of one knee, 1 foot, and a hand. Okay? Mota lifts his knee and has somehow brings the whole leg off the ground with it, but has 1 foot on the ground and one hand on the ground as he gets kicked in the head. And because of that, because he had 2 points of contact, not 3, they ruled him as not being a downed opponent and that the head kick was considered a knockout. I don't know the exact definition on the rules on that, but it was well-timed, if nothing else. So for Derek Anderson to get that win, he was losing that fight. Derek Anderson's a skilled fighter. Killys Mota is also a skilled fighter. I'm going to take Killys Mota to get this one done over the up-and-comer 7-0 Pacheco. I think Pacheco's got a shot. It's not something I would, put a ton on, but I don't mind a shot on Killys Mota here, especially if you can get him as an underdog against an up-and-comer. If not, if he is the favorite, like I said, I don't know the odds off the top of my head. If he is the favorite, I'd probably just pass on this one entirely. But a couple of jiu-jitsu guys, one of them can strike better than the other. You go with the striker in that case. Let me know what you guys think. Let's move right along. All right, we've got Imam Safi Aliyev versus Sean Connor Fallon. This is a 185-pound fight, so middleweight. I've got a couple of things I want to break down real quick. So Aliyev is 8-0, undefeated. Last 5, obviously he's 5-0 in his last 5. 4-1 in the last 5 for Fallon. Now for Fallon, he started out his career 3-5. He's now 16-7. So a very rocky start to this guy's career, but he's really picked things up kind of turned things around. And even in his recent fights, he's done pretty well. Obviously, 4-1 in his last 5. So even though he is 36, he still seems to be doing things at a pretty good pace. It is a higher weight class, so you can go a little bit longer as you age. But I wanted to point that out. If you look at just his record, it looks terrible. 16-7 is not what you want against an 8-0 guy. But like I said, started out the career 3 wins, 5 losses. He's made it to where he's 4-1 in his last 5, 16-7. That's not so bad. So anyway, the record looks bad. The matchup is a little bit closer than it should be for a few reasons, and I'm going to tell you why. In this matchup, obviously, we have a much younger fighter for the 24-year-old on Aliev's side. He is fighting the 36-year-old over there. The 36-year-old also has a couple of other drawbacks that we're going to point out here. He's a natural welterweight. That's where most of his fights have taken place. His last one was a catchweight at 180, but most of his fights have been at welterweight. He has fought as low as lightweight in the past. This one, obviously, 185. That is what middleweight is, so there is that. His striking. Although his striking isn't bad, it's slow. I don't really know how to describe this other than it just looks slow. You see it coming. You're like, yeah, there's a punch coming. Oh. That's what I thought every time I was watching him strike. He lands on guys, but it's slow. I don't know. But his jiu-jitsu, it is really surprisingly good. Like, way better than I thought it was going to be. Going into this guy that I had not actually heard of before. Going into watching his fights, this guy's got really good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It is solid, okay? So I wanted to point that out before we go any further because there's going to be something we're going to bring up about that in a moment. On the other side for Aliev, his stance. I like his stance. And why is that? Probably because it's the stance I used to use, so I'm a little biased here. But what he does, he has the right hand right there at the chin, okay? Keeps it safe, steady, ready to roll, cocked and ready to fly. His other hand out here, directing traffic. What is he doing with his hand? Putting it in your face. Touching you with it. Using it to stop you from doing a takedown on your own. Using it to kind of keep the distance so he knows where he needs to be. But this one's ready to go. And he can touch you with that lead hand. But the one by the face, that's coming out with the power shot when he needs it. His striking isn't his best aspect to his game. But I do like the way he can strike. And he can use it to help set up his takedowns. Because he does have some pretty good grappling. His grappling's actually really good, okay? Once he gets on top of you, that top pressure, it's pretty gnarly. But he's able to do that at such a high level because when he's here, he's directing traffic, he's already this close to you, and can get in quick. He has the stance that he has is very advantageous for his style, and I like that a lot. So he does seek the finish once he gets into the ground. That's great. We like to see that out of fighters. We like to see him seek the finish. He doesn't always get the finish, but he seeks it, and that's what you want to see. Here's the problem. His defensive wrestling is, probably won't be an issue here. Fallon's not really known to be a wrestler, but he's very susceptible to the offensive jiu-jitsu of an opponent. There's been a few times where he's caught in some nasty situations that he somehow has gotten out of because he's undefeated, but it was close. And Fallon is a better jiu-jitsu player than I think any of those guys that had him in those situations. So his defense to his Brazilian jiu-jitsu is not as good as it should be, and Fallon is not the guy that you want to practice on in the cage because that guy does have good jiu-jitsu. He's just active with it. He's active in a way that I've seen him win rounds off his back without getting a submission, obviously, but off of his back just by tearing up guys. He had a fight. I think he ended up getting a finish, but there was no way he lost this round. He ended up landing 40, 50 strikes maybe from his back, hitting this guy in the head with his elbow. The other guy landed no strikes whatsoever and was just getting destroyed and couldn't even move his arms because he had both of his arms tied up. I don't know, he tied up both of them, but he did. So his jiu-jitsu off his back is really good for a guy that you would expect to be being brought in to lose to an undefeated prospect. So this fight scares me a bit. I think Aliev's probably going to get the win. He is a nice up-and-coming prospect, 24 years of age, fighting a 36-year-old who's at the end of his career, or at least close to. Whether or not he likes that, Father Time just kind of kicks your butt every now and then. So I wouldn't bet on this fight. This is the definition of the feet on the coffee table, crack open a couple of cold root beers, and watch and see what happens. Can this young up-and-coming guy overcome the crafty vet with the really slick jiu-jitsu, which happens to be the thing that gets him closest to losing in all of his fights? I like this matchup. I'm looking forward to watching this matchup. I'm going to pick Alia, but I'm not confident at all. So let's go to the next fight. If you guys have watched this fight, let me know. And real quick before we go to the next fight, if you made it this far in the video and you haven't liked it yet, guys, like this video. I'm killing this thing here, okay? I put in a lot of research on this. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, or if you don't want to continue to watch these, maybe don't subscribe. I don't know why you're still watching this video. But if you do want to watch more of these breakdowns, subscribe to the channel. It doesn't hurt anything. It keeps me right there on the side of your page, so you can just click on that, or the top of your page, depending on what you're watching it on. Keeps me right there. You can see all my breakdowns. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But really, comment and let me know if you've seen some of that jiu-jitsu, and if you think it's as good as I do. He does really well from his back. Aliev caught in some arm bars, some triangles, some things that were real close. Made it out. Can he make it out in this one? Let's find out on Friday. I think it was Friday. Next fight. We have Otto Rodriguez taking on Hassan Askabov. I think that's right. In the featherweight division here. 5-0 on the last 5 for Rodriguez. 4-1 for Askabov. In this matchup, this is going to be an interesting one because I think both guys' best skill is when they can get on top of their opponent. But both guys are also pretty good in the striking department. These guys are well-rounded fighters from what I can tell. But anyway, in this matchup, the height discrepancy is 2 inches. It's not a big deal, but it's there. For Rodriguez, he does have decent striking. Keeps the high guard here with the hands, so that's nice. He has good footwork on the feet. Actually, the footwork is actually what makes me think that he's gonna be harder to take down for a guy like Askabov. But I don't know that that's necessarily his best path to victory on the Askabov side, so there's that as well. For Rodriguez, he does have good BJJ, good strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The thing that is really nice is he mixes in wrestling-style takedowns, and not a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys do that. So I do really like that on the Rodriguez side. He'll shoot a double leg. He doesn't necessarily have to go in there and do the body lock and try to trip the guy. No, he's actually got some solid wrestling-style takedowns, and I think that sets up his jiu-jitsu well. He does have really strong top pressure as well. He'll wrap your legs, grapevine them, flatten you out. Once he gets that, he starts working too. He's working for submissions, working for some ground and pound. Solid top pressure on the Rodriguez side. Over on the other side, I'm going to cover the grappling first and we'll get into the striking. So he does have good takedowns of his own. When he gets on top, he's very active. His grappling is solid. He can work off his back if he has to. Typically, he's using it to get position, though, not just to throw up submissions willy-nilly. But he does have solid grappling. So in the grappling department, both guys are very, very talented. Whoever gets on top of the other one first is probably going to be able to maintain that position and actually win in that realm of the fight. Whoever gets the takedown is going to be the one that's going to win that area here. But in the striking, this is where it's interesting. This dude has wild striking. Now, it's gotten less reckless since he's progressed in his career, but it's still very wild. And those knees that he throws are nasty. You hear them thud off the opponent's ribs, and you're like, man, that does not sound like a knee hitting ribs. That sounds like somebody hitting like a slab of beef with a baseball bat. It's crazy. Those knees are sick. So anyway, for the Askabov side of this thing, his striking, even though Rodriguez has a good guard, good movement, I think I favor that really wild striking of Askabov, and I'm going to just the slightest bit edge him as my pick here, but I'm not confident in this one. This is my second, I think the last one was too, my second fight where I'm saying, hey, kick them feet up on the coffee table, crack open a couple of cold root beers, and have a good time. This fight, it's going to be root beers number 3 and 4 for me, all right? I like Askabov here. Not enough to say that he's a pick by any means. I'm letting this one ride. We're just going to watch this one for the fun of it. Let me know what you guys think. Let's move to the next one. I'm going to start this one off by letting you guys know that we're in a territory here where there's not a lot known about one of these fighters. So bear with me on when I come to the pick, but we'll get into that in a moment. We have Levon Chokhele coming in 2-2-1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Chokhele, I think is how you say that. He's taking on Roman Faraldo. I'm so bad with names on this one. Darn it. I used to make fun of people when they would do videos like these and be like, man, why can't you guys pronounce their names? And now here I am doing it, and I can't pronounce some of these names. And I've heard these names from the regional fights. Some of them are when they're speaking a different language and you hear the name in there, so the accents are tough for me. But either way, we're going to call him Levon because I don't want to try to pronounce Chokhele every time and probably get it wrong. Faraldo, I think I can pronounce that. Anyway, he is undefeated. Faraldo is. He's 5-0 in his last 5 fights because he's 8-0 overall, so that's nice. On the other side, 2-2-1 for Levon. Levon, he does have some dynamic striking skills. I like them a lot. I saw an amateur fight of his where he kicked a guy right square in the face with his chin and made that guy flat as a pancake. It was really nice to watch. He's carried that skill as he's progressed, but he did that as an amateur, so he's only gotten sharper in the striking. Something else I want to mention, he fought in a lot of these really weird fights where there was kind of like in a gym with like mats on the ground, and there no cage, nothing. It was just, there was like, I assume there was an out of bounds, but it wasn't clearly marked if there was. But yeah, it was just like some mats on the ground, and there was a referee. They had MMA gloves. It seemed the fights are on Tapology, so because I went to look and compare if they were legitimate fights. But yeah, I don't know, really strange. Anyway, the striking's there. He's solid on the ground. He's hard to finish. He's just generally a tough guy, good fighter. He's fighting a guy who finishes everybody and quick. Feraldo, he's a very powerful, explosive, clean striker. Now, that's the only thing I can really say because that's all we've really got to see about this guy. I've watched all of his fights in, gosh, less than 10 minutes. I don't know. Most of his fights are in just a handful of seconds. So for Feraldo, I think he's probably going to get the win here, but the pick isn't based on much other than how impressive he looked in his first 8 fights. I don't know what else to go off of. He looked really good. He does this dynamic striking that Levon does. He does it way more flashy, way more powerful, way more explosive. So I'm going to take him here, but I have no idea what happens if he gets drugged to the ground and ground out for a round or two. What happens then? I don't know. No idea. Nobody knows. We haven't seen it. I'm going to take him. Not the most confident, but, I'll take it. Let's move on to the next fight. I don't have much more. We've got a heavyweight matchup between Daniel James and Tyrell Fortune. And for Fortune, he's 4-1 in his last 5, just like Daniel James. Daniel James is 40 years old, though, and that's an issue because we've got 32-year-olds for Fortune. I think it's Fortune. I don't remember. Either way, Fortune, whatever. For Tyrell, he is 32 years of age, so he's still in his prime, especially at heavyweight. 40 isn't that old for a heavyweight, but anytime you see a fighter getting over 40, you got to start to wonder just a little bit how their cardio is going to hold up, how their body's going to hold up. As you hit your 40s, you just slow down a little bit. It's just the way it is. But for Daniel James has a very strong advantage that he was just given naturally. Now he's 6'6" and has an 82-inch reach. That is a significant height and reach advantage over the 6'2", 77-inch reach of Fortune, whatever. Either way, both guys do have some decent striking. Not that Tyrell has the best striking, but for a heavyweight, he moves well enough, throws clean shots, doesn't just loop big bombs. So I do like that. He's going against a guy that works everything off of his jab really well. Some of his other strikes don't look the prettiest, but his jab is super rangy, long. He puts his shoulder into it when he reaches to hit you at that long range. And he's already got an 82-inch reach, as I mentioned. So being able to use that jab so well is a big plus for him. I do think James does have a slight advantage if at range. And he's also very good against the cage. If he can push Tyrell up against the cage, he will grind on him, win some time, wear down the opponent, use his cardio, because he does have very good cardio, use his cardio to grind out a little bit, wear on the other guy, and then go back to that jab, work in that range. However, on the other side, Tyrell's got the better wrestling. If he takes this fight to the ground, all the way to the ground, I'm talking, not against the cage. Against the cage, James can work off of that, get back to his position and start wearing on you. I've seen it in some of his fights, not to the level of opponent that Tyrell Fortune is, but either way, the best path to victory here is clearly the wrestling. I do think he gets it done. I'm taking Fortune here. He's probably the better overall fighter, but like I said, the striking, I might favor the longer, rangier James, but he's getting up there in age, so who knows? He could go out and just get cracked and dropped. It's a real possibility, especially as you start getting over 40. So I'm not super sure about that. That gives me pause a little bit and then kind of helps cement my pick on the Fortune side. He is probably going to be using that wrestling to control this fight, take the fight to the ground and get the win there. Most likely anyway, unless he gets to knock him out pretty early, because 40-year-old is just kind of coming to his age. That's the way it works. We saw it at UFC 281 when Frankie Edgar is 41, has all the talent in the world, but when you're 41, just get knocked out pretty darn easy. So there's that. Anyway, everything's a little slower at 40. I'm taking Fortune. Let me know. We've got a couple fights left. Let's go. We have Timur Khizriev coming in 5-0 in his last 5. He is 11-0 overall as an undefeated prospect. Taking on the aging veteran in Daniel Weichel at a featherweight matchup. Weichel is 37 years old, so 37 versus the 26-year-old prospect. That is a big glaring difference here. Get 11 years in age. I don't know if I like that because here's why. Vaishul's clearly slowing down at this point in his career. A young prime Vaishul, he was choking guys out, a lot of head and arm chokes, rear naked chokes, things like that. Had good striking. He would be able to run you down with his just 1-2s, big advancing position. But now he's getting towards the end of his career at 37. He hasn't looked like himself. He's getting some wins, don't get me wrong, but they're not over the level of competition he used to be able to get wins over. Now he's fighting a guy coming up undefeated, hasn't really been tested too much in his fights. The guy, like I said, he's 26, so there is that. He's really good timing on his takedowns. The reason I say that is he'll duck under your 1-2. He'll plan it until you throw a feint, and as you're recovering the feint, so if you feint the hip like you're going to throw a kick, and then as you're coming back, he's on the takedown before you can replant your foot and throw something else or get those hips in for the takedown or the takedown defense. So his timing is very good. He uses his strikes as well to set up the takedowns. Now his striking isn't great, but because of the way that he does what he does with his tools that he has, because he's able to use those strikes well enough to set up his takedowns, it is effective and applicable here, I do think, in a fight where he's fighting an aging veteran who probably is the better striker overall, but Kisryev's not going to be just totally trash on the feet. He's all right there. He's going to be able to give Vaishul something to think about so he can get that takedown and as well as time it under one of the punches of Vaishul. Now, another thing that I really like about Kisryev is he looks to advance the position, and a lot of guys that want to get you down to the ground, some of them will just lay there and not do anything. Kisryev doesn't do that. He wants to advance the position, get to where he can start pounding you out or look for the finish. He may not get the finish very often, but what he does, or at least in his 11 fights, he may not always finish the fight. Let's put it that way. But what he does do is he looks to advance. When he does get a hold of you, moves that position forward, he gets to a position where he has the ability to finish the fight. And that's what I like to see about from a grappler of his level. So for me, I think Kisryev's the obvious pick here. Can Vaishul get it done? The aging vet does have all the skills, but like I said, he's 37 and he's showing clear signs of slowing down. I'm going to take Kisryev here. If you guys think Vaishul still got one in him, let me know. If not, let me know. I mean, hey, maybe you're big on Kisryev here. I wouldn't blame you if you are. So let's go. We've got, 2 fights left? Big ones, big matchups, title fights. It's going to be good. This card's pretty fun. This is actually one of the best Bellator cards I've seen in a while. So let's move on. Let's go to that one. Lightweight title up for grabs. We have Patricky Pitbull taking on Usman Nurmagomedov. Now for Nurmagomedov, he is 15-0 in his career, 5-0 in his last 5, obviously. For Patricky Pitbull, it's 3-2 in his last 5, which is really interesting because he's the champion. Something I want to point out, he's coming off of a win. Obviously, he won the title. But before that, he was coming off of 2 losses. So the fact that he had the title shot in the first place is kind of weird. Bellator does weird stuff sometimes. Patricky Pitbull, 3-2 in his last 5. So won the title fight, 2 losses before that, 2 wins before that. Weird. All right. Anyway, the age difference, 24 on the side of Nurmagomedov, 36 on the side of Patricky. Patricky's getting up there. I believe he's been in Bellator for how many years now? A long time. So Patricky's done it. He's fought just about everybody. He's been around. He's good. Don't get me wrong. He's a very talented fighter. But, man, that guy's been through some wars, and that's something that we're going to touch on in a moment. He's also the shorter guy. He's 5'7" with a 71-inch reach against the 5'11", 72-inch reach of Nurmagomedov. For Nurmagomedov, high-level grappling, high-level striking. His kicks are very, very good. They're underrated because – obviously, when you see that name, Nurmagomedov, you think grappling. His striking is very good. He can push a pace on you, and he controls the range very well. I breezed through all these things because we know that we know what Nurmagomedov is. We know how good he is in pretty much every aspect of mixed martial arts. How does that match up against Patricky Pitbull? Well, let's get into it. Power in the hands. Patricky Pitbull can put you to sleep. He can put just about anybody to sleep. And if he's going to win, that's probably how he's going to have to do it against Nurmagomedov. He does have good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I just don't think it's going to stack up with the Sambo style of Nurmagomedov. Sambo beats jiu-jitsu most of the time. It's just the way it is. So anyway, good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Don't get me wrong. Nurmagomedov is going to be able to put the pressure on that jiu-jitsu. But the power in the hands, that's something that Patricky has that's going to equalize that a little bit. The problem, though, is he's willing to stand and trade. And if you're willing to stand and trade with a guy like Nurmagomedov, he's going to be able to use that range that he does. He uses range well. Obviously, he's the taller fighter. There's a little bit of reach advantage, but the taller fighter, and he uses the kicks. He's going to be able to probably keep the fight far enough away that when Patricky does come to to close distance, throw big bombs. He can see it. And when he sees it coming, get the takedown. Make Patricky start to fear the takedown. When Patricky's fearing the takedown, guess what? He's not going to be as willing to come in and throw those wild bombs. And that's when Nurmagomedov can pick him apart on the feet or take him to the ground. It's up to him. So for me, I think it's time for the younger champion to take over. Nurmagomedov is going to get the win. He's going to probably beat Patricky in a way that you're going to say, oh yeah, that's kind of what we thought was going to happen, but we didn't really want to see the champion just get demolished like that. That's what it's going to look like. Usman Nurmagomedov, pretty confident pick here. Patricky's just too old, too many wars. Stylistic matchup just isn't great for him. I like Patricky. I'm a fan of the guy. Just not going to get it done here. Usman Nurmagomedov. Let me know what you guys think. Let's go to the main event. We got a big one in the light heavyweight division. Here we go. The main event of the evening in the light heavyweight division, 205 pounds. Corey Anderson, 3-1 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. That no contest coming to his opponent, Vadim Nemkov. I believe that was off of a illegal clash of heads or whatever. I guess not illegal, just like a accidental clash of heads, whatever. 4-0-1 on the Nemkov side. There is a bit of a height and reach discrepancy here. Corey Anderson is 6'3" with a 77.5-inch reach. Only 6 foot on the Nemkov side. He does have a 76-inch reach. So the 1.5-inch reach advantage and the 3 inches in height lies on the Anderson side. Here is a very interesting matchup because we've got to see part of it. I believe the clash of head was early in the 3rd round in their last fight, something like that. Here's the thing. Nemkov, if you just look skill for skill, should win this fight no problem. But there's some variables in there that we're going to struggle with. Because for Corey Anderson, his path to victory is very clear. He's a very good wrestler. He's a very, very good wrestler. He does have power in his hands. Not the most technical striker, but he has power in his hands, so he can hurt you. But man, is he a good wrestler. On the other side, Nemkov, good striking, good movement, good footwork, good in the clinch, good grappling when he's on top, sucks off his back, plays into here, and he slows and fights. We started to see it in the last fight. Nemkov was winning early on, starts to slow down, clash of heads happens, we never know who's going to win. Here we are, we get to finally figure this out. Who's the better striker? Nemkov breaks as the fight goes on with his cardio. And obviously when your cardio falls off, guess what? Your will to fight kind of falls off too. Nemkov is the better striker. He's the better clinch grappler. He's not the better grappler per se, but he's a better clinch grappler. And when he's on top, he's going to have a significant advantage over the wrestler in Corey Anderson. But when he's on the bottom, he's going to have you a severe disadvantage. Whoever gets the takedown is going to be able to control that from there. Anderson's not great off his back. Nemkov sucks off his back. There's that. On the feet, clear advantage to Nemkov. The problem is, this is a 5-round championship fight, and Nemkov is going to gas at some point. It's just a foregone conclusion. How soon will he gas? I'm willing to say Nemkov's probably going to win. He's probably going to win round 1. Most likely going to win round 2. Round 3 is totally in question. We have no idea. Will Corey Anderson take over at round 3 because Nemkov's toast? Or will Nemkov be able to hang in there? Corey Anderson's almost certainly going to win round 4 and 5. Can Nemkov get Corey Anderson out of there in rounds 1 or 2? Totally possible, and that would be a good path to victory for him. Could Corey Anderson get Nemkov out of there in rounds 4 or 5? Yeah, totally possible, and a decent path to victory for him. Here's the thing, though. You have to go through rounds 1 and 2 to get to rounds 4 and 5. If you didn't know that, now you know. I'm sure you already knew, but now you know for sure. Anyway, Nemkov has his path to victory earlier, so for that, I'm going to slightly favor him in this matchup. If it just comes down to the scorecards and we have 2 rounds apiece for sure, round 3's up in the air, it could go either way. I'll take Nemkov just by the slightest margin. This is going to be root beers 4 and 5, or 5 and 6. Sorry, 5 and 6. Numbers are not my thing anymore. Just a minute ago, I'm telling you how rounds work. Now I can't count my root beers. Had a few too many, if you know what I mean. Anyway, put the feet on the coffee table, crack open your root beers, watch the main event, enjoy the main event. If you're a wild man, go ahead and put some stuff down. If you're a wild woman, go ahead and put some stuff down. But for me, I'm not betting on this one. You degenerates can do that. I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm picking Nemkov for the sake of a pick. But I think Corey Anderson's got a really strong path to victory here. And if this fight goes past round 2, Corey Anderson's going to probably start to take over at some point in the 3rd round. Will it be enough to win the 3rd round? We don't know. We're going to find out on Friday. But because the path to victory for Nemkov is earlier in the fight, he could just bank 3 rounds and then lose the last 2. Doesn't matter. For me, that's why I take Nemkov here. Corey Anderson doesn't get his chance to shine, most likely, in the early part of the fight, and there's a chance that we don't get to the rounds that Corey Anderson can shine. So that's why I'm taking Nemkov. I'm not mega confident in it, like I said, so don't hold me to this one. There are fights where you can tell me I'm a big old dummy for picking the wrong guy. This one, I'm only making a pick because I feel like I have to, and Nemkov, I mean, like I said, earlier path to victory. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Corey Anderson gets this one done, becomes the light heavyweight champion at Bellator? Do you think Nemkov retains his title, stays as the light heavyweight champion, continues to put on his reign in the top of the Bellator ranks? Let me know. I've had a good time breaking down this card, even though I spent way too many hours on it. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, what are you doing? Just subscribe to the channel. Let's do this thing. I'm going to keep breaking these down. I'm going to keep giving you the best picks, the hottest picks in the internet, in the MMA community, the hottest picks you're ever going to find. You're going to find them here at 138 MMA. And also like this video because it's very nice of you, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate all the comments. You'll be seeing me again with the UFC video coming out for this fight night we have coming up. And lastly, I asked about it at UFC 281's breakdown video. If you have not done so, let me know in the comments what you want to see during the off week that we've got coming up. I've had a few votes on there for the my favorite fighters in the UFC currently. So far, that's the win. But if you'd like to see me interview a fighter instead, put that down there. If you'd like to affirm the choice to have me put my 5 favorite fighters in the UFC currently, let me know in the comments below. This has been a great breakdown. This has been a great video. I've enjoyed spending this time with all of you, and I hope to see you down in the comments. Let's watch the fights. Let's watch them together. Just separate, but together. Let's watch them Friday. Have some fun. See you on the next video.